name is Oladoso Adenike. I'm the founder of Highly Climate Action Initiative from Nigeria. Over time, we have seen the impact of the climate change crisis through floods, food insecurity, drought, and other issues. And flood is one of the major issues affecting Nigeria currently, and a recurring issue, and even annual issues. And there have been an outlook for the 2023 flood crisis in Nigeria. And today we have a very intelligent and phenomenal person in this field. And in short, he have even created an app recently on the flood-related issue, and is going to be diving more on the issue on how we could tackle it, what the government initiative could look like, policymakers and the rest. And so I have with me today that the person of Mr. Taiwo Ogunwumi, and is also the founder of Geohazard Mapping Initiative, and is going to be telling us more. And we are really happy and honored to have you here today, because I know you are very busy, but thank you for honoring our invitation. And you have the floor now. Thank you.
Thank you, Adenike. I also want to use the medium to commend you for your contribution towards ensuring a sustainable environment, and as well to contributing your quota to ensure that we have an environment that is very, very less prone to the effect of flood disaster. My name is Taiwo Ogunwumi. I'm from Nigeria, and I'm a flood risk consultant for over 4 years now, contributing my quota in using advanced technology to see how we can reduce the impact of flood, and of course to keep the people aware of how they can be better prepared, and of course how the national institution can also respond to the possible impact of flood that is affecting Nigeria as well as other African countries.
Thank you so very much. And we really appreciate the work you are doing, because over time we have a discussion in the past, maybe the link will be on the screen, on how you are using Earth observation, using remote sensing in tracking these changes or the flood, that it help you to resolve issues related to flood. And looking at the global outlook of the 2023 flood disaster, I was listening into an interview on TV, and they mentioned the fact that over 178 local government will be affected, and 36 states, including the FCT, will also be affected by the flood this year. So what do you say about this outlook? Do you think it's outrageous? Do you think it's not going to happen? What could be the contributing factors? Just an overview about this flood crisis in Nigeria this year.
I think firstly, I really want to commend the ministry, that's the NEMA, the NIHSA, the Agricultural Service Agency, as well as the National Emergency Management Agency, for putting this together, and of course for releasing this to the public, because why? Phone information is quite very essential, and it's also a way for them to notify the state governments about the possible flood occurrence that will happen. It's good that it's been quantified for us to understand how many number of local governments or how many number of states will be affected. So yes, this is true, and I think it's very essential that every state government, every individual should adhere to this information that is shared. I will not say it's overestimated. No, I don't think so. I will even say that maybe it's even underestimated itself, because you have seen over the year that when we say, oh, well, 16 states will have flood, is almost more than that. Climate change is real. And of course, you cannot really accurately predict the effect. It's always more than what you expected. So we can't say it's overestimated, but we must also say that there must be concrete action and a strong preparedness, right? Even not only the states that are not listed, even the states that are not listed also must be readily prepared, and of course be creating several possible means of how they can respond to this flood if at all it happened at all.
Okay, so from what you have just mentioned now, what could be the lasting solution to this issue? Because over time they said, okay, maybe it's drainage issue, maybe it's urban planning kind of thing. But I've seen communities whereby this river channels is not even as big as it should, but over time it keeps expanding. Do you think, what are the problems to this solution on the flood issues that we have to put in place or checkmate in Nigeria today?
Yes, I think like I was telling someone some couple of weeks ago, that it's very essential that we understand that there's enormous role that we all have to play when it comes to responding to floods, and of course reducing the possible impact of flood. The root cause of flood is not spectacular to a particular city. Is always, is unique anyway to a particular city. But I will put it very shortly that different states and different places have the factors that contribute to flood. It's not the same. When you look at states like Kogi State, for instance, right, they are very close, to the River Niger, right? So the river tends to always overflow due to several factors. That's one. And then when you look at other places like City of Lagos, you also see that aside the fact that the effect of excessive rainfall and then, of course, changes in coastal level make them to be susceptible to flood. So now you see that the solution to such kind of place when it comes to reducing flood impact is quite different. So it's very essential that also you look at the rural community, you ask yourself, why are they experiencing flood? At some point in time in their home case, you can see that even some the soil type of that location, of course, or building close to river, of course, or the vulnerability of the building itself, right, which is not strong enough, and it cannot withstand the excessive rainfall, also contribute to this, and because we begin to lament, oh, there's flood. But then the root cause of flood is not generic; it's spectacular to each and every state and community, and that's why addressing it also starts not just from the national government; it also starts from the state government and even the local government. Because why? The local government are very close to the community and they can be able to dictate some of the issues, right, that we're having in those particular places. And that's why if you ask me about how do we address flood in Nigeria, this current time I've gone beyond giving a general solution, right? By saying, oh, well, let's open our drainage so that water can flow. Yes, I know, but there are places that drainage is fine. Do you get the point? So that's why, there are so many root causes, which if you give me privilege, I can also share, some couple of courses that you will see at different places. And through this, we can be able to now say, well, these are the solutions.
Yeah, please, you can go ahead to share some of those courses, because over time, you would just wonder that why did it have to overflow to the extent that it affects several houses being submerged? Look at the last year flood. It was so massive that even story buildings were even submerged, just the roof you could find or see. And so you can just tell us what are the causes apart from drainage, because I hear about drainage a lot on the issue that, okay, we have to clear our drainage, maybe because of the drainage pattern. So aside that, what next?
So I'm going to start with one. One is when you look at the poor urban planning, right? Poor planning of housing, very, very important. There are so many people that have built house very close to the river channels, right? Which does not give room for the river to flow. 20 years ago, the rate of river discharge and flow is very low compared to now. There's drastic increase. So someone can say that I've been here for 20 years. That's true. But now things are changing. So meaning that what we have to also adjust to the environment. That's one. So you see places that are very located close to the river, right? There's need for evacuation. They have to move out of the place. There's no other solution than to just move to a different place, to a different location. That's one. And two is that you also see that many places, right, for instance, right, they are not close to the river, but there's excessive rainfall. Rainfall amount have also changed drastically to the extent that even some of the few drainage that we have, the capacity is not, is not enough to hold the amount of water that is pouring on the head surface. So very important that we need to expand some couple of drainage. It will cost us, but then there's need to expand the drainage system, drainage channels. At the same time, poor waste management is also very enormous in major cities. You see that we don't have major, if you for instance now with your experience traveling across the world, other European countries, you will see that we have waste disposing outlets at many meters, even at bus stops where you can drop your pure water, so table water on all those other waste products like that. Then solid waste precisely. But then you see that in our home case in Nigeria or in other African countries, right, we dump waste almost every place, so it blocks the channel. So you see, even a small amount of rainfall, right, that does not last for a long period of time can drastically just cause flood. That's one factor. Third factor is also that you also observe that what happened to the case of farmers, right? Farmers who are being impacted by flood, which also caused the decline in food security that you mentioned at the beginning of this interview. You see that at some point, farmers are not even aware that there's a change in rainfall. They don't have that information. Most of the average farmers are not aware about it. About, oh, well, flood is coming. Early warning does not reach some of these people. And you see, part of what will make us to continue to say, oh, there's flood. We only mention there's flood when people are are being impacted, right? If rain just fall and there's no destruction, nothing like disaster. So we don't have what we call flood disaster. So if people are better informed, right? If early one information goes down to the community level, right? Farmers are better, much aware, and they can be more better prepared. Oh, what do we have to do? Do we have to raise our farmland or several other means like this? So some places have a gap in accessing early warning information, and this is also a root cause. Some places have a poor drainage system. This is also a root cause. There's also poor coordination, especially when you look at the issue of last year flood that comes to the fact that there are release of water from a neighboring country. But then you see, and there's no better awareness compared to what we have this year, where you begin to see some couple of letters, right, flying out, showing that, oh, well, they'll be released. And then, it's more different, right, than what we have in the previous years, that there's no, quick alarm for the people to be aware, and they started preparing. So coordination is very important. Poor urban planning is also a problem. We allocate land to people in places that are not supposed to be, buildings, right? Poor drainage system is very important, right? You also notice that we also have some couple of engineering system along our coast, like dikes, what we have in European countries that can be able to withstand the change in water level. Because of course, the sea level rise also contribute to coastal flooding in cities that are across, they are being bordered by the Atlantic Ocean precisely.
Thank you so very much. And this leads me to the next question. Over time, I've seen in the news that when they ask people, what are the alternatives, they talk about drenching, like drenching the river Benue or the Niger. Do you think it's a feasible solution to ending the flood crisis? And what do you have to say about the fact that government are also seeing, or state government are seeing these houses closer to the river? What do they need to do? Do they need to compensate them or just tell them to leave? Because people cannot afford this, to get another house on their own because of the cost of everything. So what do you think they need to do? Do they need to drench? Do they need to evacuate them to another place or compensate them? Or what do you think they need to do?
If you look at the Kongi issue, for instance, when you look at the river Niger and River Benue, they are indeed very deep, and it covers a long kilometers. And it's very important for you to understand that when you just say drenching is highly engineering, right? It can take 3 years to do that kind of project. It's not a prayer that you start this month and you dredge this month. It's very good that we know that. And then we need to start looking at the possible solution, not just the cost of drenching, is very, very enormous. It's a good solution, but then it will take time. But then when we look at buffer zones, right, if there's room for water to flow, that's one. And then, of course, the fact that if we don't have people staying along the banks of the river, we will not be shouting flood disasters, right? So there are houses, like you confirmed, there are many houses along the river channels, right? Where should they go, right? The question is, how did they get there in the first place? Was the land approved? You have seen people, right, fighting, saying, I cannot live here. Where should I go? Okay, how do you get there in the first place? Is there an authorized land? Who authorized that for you? The master plan for the state, does it confirm that you should build your house there? So you have seen many places, for instance, now that they begin to tell people to evacuate from where they are staying. You see house being destroyed. So we cannot say that, well, I cannot live here because they didn't provide me another house. If we keep saying that, then our life are more susceptible to the impact of flood. And that's why I said that not just the national government or state government, as an individual, we have a role to play. We see that this flood is coming every year. We record what happened last year. We see what happened last year, right? We saw what happened last year. And of course, it's quite very important to understand that if care is not taken, we just have to move. There's nothing we can do. So you can't claim that, oh, they must give me another house in the city center before I will leave this place. If you keep saying that, then we cannot build a house for over 200 million. I mean, over a lot of people, right? Over 2 million people then be staying along the riverbank. We cannot do that. But you understand quite well that what makes us to keep saying flood disaster is because there's more water and people are affected. Do you know that if there's if there's water overflow and people are not affected, will not be saying flood?
Thank you so very much for answering the other question. And so we talked about drenching, we talked about the evacuation plan, we talked about the master plan. So What do you think? What are the extra measures? Do you think we have the capacity, the infrastructure, the resources that we need to curtail the effect of floods? And if we don't have, or if we have little of these resources, how do we manage in order for us to beat the flood crisis in Nigeria?
Okay, Adenike, thank you. I think I'm going to add more to the measure that I think it's also the best for what we are going through in Nigeria right now. For instance, in 2022, you remember that we have a release from a neighboring dam, right, in another country. And part of the agreement we had with them was that we're going to build our own dam so that when the water is coming, it can flow and it can store into our own dam. But we don't have our own dam. So these are something that comes in season, right? There is more increase in water. Neighboring country will always officially tell us that there's a release, and they are not doing that based on the fact that they are wicked. They are doing that based on that is normal, right? You have to allow water to flow, give room for water. But then now you see our dam up to now, after 1 year, there's nothing that has been done concerning that. Building dam is a very good solution to save water in essence. And when it's dry season, even such can be used for irrigation and such can be used for electricity generation. So you see that point. So aside the fact that we should dredge, aside the fact that we should evacuate, we should also build our own dams because of this water that keep coming every year. And it's becoming, you see, it happened last year, it's happened this year now. 3 years ago, it wasn't like that. But then if care is not taken, this is what we're going to be experiencing over and over again. So I feel that, secondly, if you also look at countries like Netherlands, which I've been to, which I work, in, the thing is that you realize that they were at some point in time, experiencing the issue of, this coastal flood because they are below sea level. What did they do? They built constructive dikes. Those are massive engineering. Constructive dike that goes as many heights as possible. So even when there's high water, it will not flow beyond the bank. So if you build constructive dikes, right, along the river course, it will indeed help us. If we construct our own dam, when there's excess water, it can flow into the dam for a while. And that's all. And then once we improve our early warning and of course our emergency response, in case things go beyond, then we will surely be fine. Like I mentioned earlier, flood disaster is when it's disrupt a lot of things, right? Livelihood, health, infrastructures, causes death. That's when it becomes a disaster. If there is just excessive water from Cameroon, right, and it doesn't overflow its banks, you will not be talking to me right now, asking me about what can we do as flood, right? It's as simple as that. Construct our dam. Let's build our own dikes. It will be a big project, right? Of course, it's very costly, but then we have so many international organizations, right, that can always help. They are always there to support with this kind of project. World Bank does this a lot. For as much as we are able to maximize this kind of project and bring the best, use of it, they will surely fund it. And that's my best advice that I can offer you in this.
Okay, thank you. And recently you developed an app on flood control. So can you just tell us what the app is all about, how we can make use of it? Maybe it's within Nigeria alone, or maybe it includes other African countries or globally. Just tell us what it's all about.
Okay, it's very good to really talk about the app. What's the app about basically? It's a flood event reporting app.
Welcome to the flood reporting app. To get started, go to the link on your screen, or you can scan the QR code on the poster. To start reporting an incident, first select the date and time that the flooding occurred. Next, you will need to select the name of the community where the flooding occurred. So you select the box and type in the name of the community. After that, you have to provide the name of the local government where the flooding occurred. So you select the box and type in the name of the local government. The next step is to select the state where the flooding occurred, which will usually be the state that you're collecting the data from. Next, you indicate if the flooding caused any damages. If yes, you would have to specify what damages were caused. If some of them are not listed on the option, you can select others. And and type in what other stuff were damaged. Next, you have to provide information about how many buildings were flooded or damaged. So you see a list of ranges to select from. You also see an option to select the range of numbers of lives that were lost. You would then provide information about other public infrastructures that were damaged. If none is listed, you could select others and type in what were damaged.
So when the flood occurred, right, we realized that oftentimes it's only, you just see on news, oh, flood happened in one particular community. We don't take record of this flood. At what depth is the flood? At what level? What's the water level, right? What was destroyed, right? And these have to come from the community member themselves, right? To basically, record what happened. How many house was damaged, right? I mean, what's the flood water level? This information are very, very important for so many people. Number one, is very important for the ministry to strategically build those kind of community for preparedness. That's one. It also helps NGOs, for instance, who really want to do some couple of capacity building in some of the community, or probably who want to do some couple of building resilience in those community. They will know where was flooded and what was the effect, how many people were affected. But we don't have this kind of record, and that's why it's become so much important. You see this in other external countries, right? At the same time, if you also want to predict future flood, you can always use the past flood event record to be able to predict the future one. And that's why those are the three key things why this app was very important. And that was the bedrock of what I have in mind that make me to decide to build this. And of course, so that as the flood, as we are coming to getting close to the rainy season, which might lead to flood, then we can be able to have, the community themselves, they can be able to just click the app and report. And this information that is collected single-handedly will be transferred to the emergency institution, for their own use. And of course, for other NGOs that I want to reach out and say, well, we want to do something, a program or a project ahead of 2024, and they need places that are flooded. We have people who are writing research right now on previous flood events, right? They need data sets. They're not just a random news. We have fake news now, just a random, no. And of course, because the app also give room for community, to be involved, right? To do it themselves, to click it and, put information by themselves. And that's the whole goal behind it. So I feel that it's going to help a lot of people. It's going to help the ministry to have a record. It's going to help in NGOs that want to do programming in some of this community. And of course, researcher can always use this for future predictions for flood. And of course, to validate, flood models for the technical guys anyway, who are doing flood modeling.
Okay, so do people have to have a smartphone before you can use it, or you can just use your normal touch screen, or is it a code that they need to send?
No, they don't have to send a code. So it's you need a smartphone. It's just like the same way you just press www.something.com, right? And then you click on it, it automatically shows all the details you have to fill. And the good part is that it automatically pick the geographical coordinates of where you are. So that's automatic. That's the good part of it. So you notice that other reporting that you have on flood, they don't pick what is the exact point, where does that flood occur? Not just somewhere in a particular community as a name. No, where exactly? What was the flood level of that place? How many houses were destroyed? Something like that. So it's just a simple web link. When you click it, you get, and you can be able to fill in information. So it's not really, you don't have to download something. No, it's just a link, and we make it available on so many media. But of course, I mean, it could also be good if this is, available on medias where somebody can click and can be available to so many people. But I would believe that at this point in time, there are many people who have access to WhatsApp, and link goes viral as much as possible, right? So it's easy to click. If I'm saying, oh, go to Play Store, download one particular app, you just be like, I mean, I buy it onto a feed collector, so you get something like that. So we just make it a very, very short HTML link that you can click, and of course that you can fill information.
Yeah, thank you so very much. I feel this app is very important, because we have data issues. It could be able to resolve it. Ease of trying to find solutions, knowing where the problem lies, which community is worst hit, and the rest. And as a community as a whole, there's no way someone would not have a smartphone to be able to record all of these data, all of this incidency. I think, yeah, it calls for promotion for people to be able to localize this app in reporting and also being transmitted to the right agencies. Thank you so very much. And as well, just to round it up, what would be your advice if you are to sit with the president of Nigeria? What would be your advice if you are to sit with the policymakers on the flood-related issues in Nigeria?
Yeah, I have three advice. Number one is that we really indeed need to strengthen our ministries, right? They are doing really great, but they need more support. The National Emergency Institution, the Meteorological Department, as well as the Hydrological Department, they need more support. They need more equipment. I mean, as much as I know, they also need more trainings, right? It's very important. There's also need for a collaborative, working hand in hand, right, with the Ministry for Works, ministry, in charge of all the major projects, right? So for instance, I mentioned something on the engineering project to build dikes, right? That takes a lot of funds, but it's a once and for all thing. If we can solve it, we're fine. Dams need to be constructed. There are people who are in charge. There are people who manage projects in the country. That's very, very critical. Once we do that, we will be fine. So I think just focus on the ministry, very essential. Provide them with the right equipment to measure climate processes, right? And then they can be able to even respond when it comes to flood. You will all see the devastating impact of 2022 floods. That even despite the fact that the ministry did their best, but then the response was kind of slow, the response was not effective enough. So emergency response is very important. And if you look at the advanced country, they don't really take this for granted. They really focus on how they can, be prepared for emergencies, right? And that's very critical. But our engineering solutions to demand fund, let's put some couple of funds here too. There are many lives, that are at risk each and every year, and we must be working towards, not allowing that to happen each and every year.
Yeah, thank you so very much for coming. I really appreciate your presence because you've make us understand the facts why we need to tackle it. The application that you've just done, there's a link. I'm going to add it below this description on the YouTube and also on the website for people to be able to have access to it as well. So thank you so very much for your time and for coming, for accepting.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much. Like I said earlier, you are doing very great for the community and for the nation, Africa as a continent.